Thank you for joining me once again for a devotional thought. I was exercising this morning and had finished up and had gone home to shower when I get a call from Crystal. And she had taken Toby to her tumbling class, and while there, Crystal noticed that she had a flat on the car. And so I threw my shoes back on and ran over there and started the process of changing her tire. Of course, during that process, you cannot change a tire in the Oklahoma heat in July and not start sweating again. So I started sweating again, kind of got nasty, got that tire swapped out with a spare, and took it downtown to get the tire fixed. In the meantime, Crystal and Toby take my truck and go home. After I got the tire fixed, I go home, and Toby had to show me something that she had just been able to do at her tumbling class. It was a move that she had been working on, hadn't been able to get it, and she finally gets it. She was excited. I was excited for her, and after she did it, I gave her a big hug. And her response was this: "Ooh, so much stink." Properly chagrined, I ducked my head and went back to our bathroom to take a shower and rectify the situation. The spiritual application here is twofold. My first thought is this: sometimes we stink. Honestly, I couldn't really smell myself. I guess I had become so much like what the commercial says, nose blind, that I was just unable to smell myself. Sometimes in our spiritual situation, in our spiritual sin, we don't recognize, we've come so accustomed to it that we are not thinking in terms of this is a sin anymore. We read in Matthew chapter 18 verse 15 this: "If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained a brother." When we see our brother in a situation when he is stinking, it is our job to go to him. It is in fact a command that we go to him, as we see here in Matthew chapter 18. What the key is, however, is how we go to that brother. Were my feelings hurt when my daughter said, "Oh, so much stink"? I have to admit, a little bit. However, I know my daughter's heart and I know her love for me. So bigger than my hurt was my desire to rectify the situation. The trouble arises when we don't use this biblical model. Often we don't go to our brother in love. Sometimes we don't even go to our brother at all. Instead, we may go to social media and snipe at them from there, or confront them not out of love and concern for their situation, but out of needing to be right. Sometimes we don't know the situation. After I explained to Toby that I had been exercising and then it got worse when I came to help with the tire, she was able to see things from a different perspective. It wasn't that I had suddenly stopped stinking, but that she understood more. You know, I think God sees sin from a different perspective than us. And that's the second point that I would like to make. It is not that God doesn't smell the stink of sin, but he more than anyone understands the consequences of our sin. He understands that it is the stench that separates us from him, and our sin stands as a barrier for an eternity of living with him. So God instead chose to do something about it. Instead of standing at a distance and allowing our stink to overwhelm us, he chose love. He came and he lived among us. He calls stinking sinners to him and gives us the path of being cleansed through his Son, Jesus Christ, and his sacrifice. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 21 and 22 reads this: "And this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also, not the removal of dirt from the body, but a pledge of a clear conscience toward God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand with angels, authorities, powers in submission to him." God came to us out of love. He said, "You stink." And he sent his son to be the sacrifice for our sins. He wasn't content to let us live there. He did something about it. He gives us the avenue of baptism to be able to be buried, our sins to be buried, and us to be raised into a new life. That is what love is. That is how we can go to our brother. Thank God for his love for us. And let us share that love with the world around us. Thank you for taking 6 minutes to center with me today.